Some of us start speaking to our children in our language from birth, and others, for various reasons, might decide to delay the moment they start passing on the language. But when we start later on, we need to establish new ways of communicating in a language that our children might not know at all or very little of. So if this is your case, stay tuned because I'm going to be sharing with you a few ways and tips on how you can introduce a new language when your child is 5 years old or older. The first question I would like to ask you is, why do you want to introduce your language now? Is it to help your child communicate better with your family? Or is it because it's necessary now and it wasn't before? Is it who wants your child to speak in your language? Is it you? Is it your child? Is it someone else? In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you briefly what we need to put in place before we start. And then I'm going to give you a few ideas of activities and games you can play with your child to start implementing this new language and teaching them this new language. But this is a vast subject. So what I'm going to be talking about might not apply to your own situation. So if that's the case, feel free to comment below the video and we'll make a follow-up video according to your questions, your situation in the following weeks. In this video, I'm going to be focusing on children who are age 4, 5 or in primary school. So if your children are younger or older, let us know because the advice we could give are going to vary a lot. So if they are in primary school or just below age 4 or 5, it's important that we have them on board. If they don't see the point, if they're not motivated, it's a lost battle. So the first thing to do is to see if they're motivated and to get their agreement. So to illustrate this, I'm just going to talk about my students. I teach in secondary school and I teach lots of students, but none of them have a Korean background. But there are loads of them who are learning to speak Korean. And the reason is that they love K-pop, so Korean pop or Korean drama, and they love it so much that they want to learn to speak the language. Some just pick up a few expressions. Others learn a bit more how to introduce themselves, how to count and say a few things. And others learn really properly the language. So the key things to take away from this is that we need our children to have an intrinsic motivation. They want to learn to speak our language. So how can we create this intrinsic motivation? One important way to do this is to focus on the culture. So we could share anecdotes. For example, when we introduce a new dish or a new game, we talk about maybe who we used to play this game with, who used to cook this dish to us, when we're ill, for example, or for special occasions. So we put a context around these games and dishes or other things related to the culture. Then we can create links with family members or people. So because the language is to communicate with people. So it could be video calls with your family or seeing them in person. Here we are video calling my son's little cousin who is 3 years old. He lives in Japan, but he speaks also French, but his Japanese is a lot better and he speaks a lot more Japanese. So my sons have picked up some words and expressions and they are trying to use it to communicate with him. And of course, another thing we could do is to bring our children to our country so that they can discover the country, have fun, and see how important it can be to speak our language. There is one question that Uta and I are asked very often, so I would like to answer it here. It's whether it's too late to start teaching a child after a certain age. So technically speaking, it's never too late. We can always learn the language and we can become very fluent in it, very proficient in it. So there is no limit. When we start, there are two very important things to keep in mind. The first one is to not force our children to speak our language. The second very important one is to not switch suddenly one day the language, especially when we have started establishing a language to communicate with our children. If we switch one day straight away without explanation, or we tell them, or we keep speaking that language, it's like if they were losing the connection with us. It can be very difficult emotionally. So if it's not done in one day, there must be a transition. So how can we do this transition smoothly? So for example, what you can do is to start including some nice positive expressions in your conversations. Try to be very expressive, having a lot of emotions so that it's understandable from the context. It could be saying, "Oh, well done," when your child does something great, or when you taste something that's very tasty, you can say, "Oh, wow, that's delicious." Something that your child would understand from the context and your tone of voice. Another thing you can do is to have some little moments during the week or the day where you're focused on your language. So it could be, for example, that you play a game. I'm going to give you a few examples of games afterwards, but you can play a game where they have to speak in your language, and little by little they're going to be learning these expressions. You can also read a book. So it could be that you talk about the book in English, or you talk about what cultural thing is included in the story, or you can also read in your language, then translate a bit. You can listen to songs as well. So songs, you have the melody that your child can just enjoy, and then for the translation, for the meaning, it depends on what your child wants. If they are in a mood to just listen to the melody, that's great. If they want to know what they're talking about, then you can start translating, but it's focused on your culture, and you try to make it fun so that your child wants to ask you for more. As you know, Uto and I love games, and the reason we love them is because they're going to be motivating. And if our children are motivated, they're going to want more, to play more, to speak more, and they're going to be remembering things better. When our children don't speak very well our language, what kind of games can we play? We can choose games where there is a restricted amount of words or expressions to say, and that are quite repetitive. This allows our children to listen to the words a lot more and to be able to repeat them a lot more. So it's going to be making the learning a lot easier. But one thing to avoid is to choose games that are going to be stressful or that are going to require our children to speak quickly. If that's the case, they're going to revert back to the language they're most confident in, which is going to be another language than our home language, our language. So here's a short list of games you can play. The first one is carrying your child on your shoulders. They put their hands on your eyes so you can't see, and you just ask them to say right or left. If they make a mistake, you're going to bump into a tree or a wall, and if they get it right, they're going to be avoiding it. Sometimes they might make mistakes, saying left instead of right, and then you nearly bump into the wall, so it's going to make them laugh, and they're going to be remembering much quicker how to say left or right. Another game that's easy to play is hide and seek. It's just counting up to 10 or whatever number they can count up to, and then they can try to find you. So the minimum would be just the counting part to do it in your language. Another game where you don't need to learn too many words is Simon Says. And Simon Says you can determine as well if you want to just focus on certain parts of your body or if you want to teach more. Another game is when we are blindfolded and we need to put the tail of a donkey where it should be, so on the donkey. Because this, we would just need to say up, down, left, right, so 4 words. And a last game that's quite nice to play is Guess Who. So there are just hair color, facial features like the eye colors, etc. So not too many words either. And to help embed the vocabulary, make sure you repeat words a lot, you put a lot of emotions, you're very enthusiastic, you exaggerate your tone of voice, so it becomes a lot more memorable and your child will laugh and want to say it as well. So to summarize, the 3 main points I would like you to take away from this video. The first one is to keep the link with the culture and family members so that the language becomes relevant to your child. The second point, which is really important to keep in mind, is that we need our child's agreement to start learning this new language. If they're not happy with it, it won't go really far. And the third point is to try to include the language gradually. If we do it too quickly, they're going to feel overwhelmed and they won't want to do it anymore. It still needs to be something they want to do and that they enjoy doing. If you're looking for other fun activities to play with your child to foster your languages, I invite you to check out Anna Elisa's and Uta's book, The Toolbox for Multilingual Families. I'm going to leave the link in the description below. And if you haven't done so yet, please subscribe to our channel so you can be notified whenever we publish a new video. Have fun with your languages!